Hello everyone and welcome back to the Cyclocross Social podcast. Today I'm joined with Twan. Hey Twan.
Hello.
And Issam is here as well. Hey Issam.
Hey everybody.
Today we'll be talking about the fourth round of the X2O Badkamers Trofee, which took place in Herentals, a brand new parcours to replace Loenhout, which was unfortunately cancelled. What did you guys think about the new parcours here? Because personally I loved it.
Yeah, it was a very nice parcours. I think it was very long, almost 3.5 kilometers, I think. I really liked that they were in an environment with the ski berg, or the ski mountain, if you would translate it correctly. It's not a ski mountain anymore, but it was back in the day in the 70s. I really liked it. There was a lot of variation, a lot of corners, but everybody came to its rights. The power, the technique, everything. So it was I would say a very complete parcours, and again, a very good job from the organizers.
Yeah, I was great surprised by the parcours as well. I think it's a really nice course. I expected something with more climbing than we actually got, but I think this was a really nice combination. And I hope we'll see this in the coming years as well. Definitely a great addition to the calendar.
I thought it was a bit of a mix if you would compare it to other parcourses. Maybe the first part you could compare it a bit to Heus de Zolder. Not a lot of elevation, but some elevation in there, some fast corners, a bit of fast sections, and then the second part with the mountain, the uphill and downhill. I mean, it somewhat comes close to the climbing part and downhill part we had in Fiuggi a couple of years ago. That cross isn't held anymore. When I looked at the onboard, it reminded me of Baal for a bit, but that was mainly down to the weather, and the weather really played a crucial role here as well, because it made the first part even harder. Without that, it would have been a different parcours and perhaps a different race as well.
Yes, I think the weather changed it for the better, maybe. But I think that even in dry circumstances, this would have been a great parcours, in my opinion.
Yeah, definitely, and I think it should definitely be here to stay. The riders loved it, and if you look at some others like Sven Nys and the commentators, they also loved it. So I think it should definitely be here to stay and get a place on the calendar for next season. Then let's go straight into the racing. Issam, tell us about the men's race.
The men's race, indeed, we had Van Aert back. Pidcock was not available today, but we had Van der Poel. So we were looking ahead to a battle, and a battle it was. Into the first corner was Van der Poel that wanted to have that lead. Van Aert close behind. Van Toerenhout had a very good start, and it were those three that were playing a big role in the first few laps. Van Aert made a crucial mistake in changing his bike in the first lap already. Van der Poel got a gap, and Van Toerenhout came in between them. Van Aert had to chase Van der Poel back. He did that. Then he changed bikes again. Van der Poel put him under pressure. And, they were playing a little bit within 10 to 6 seconds. At a certain moment, I was thinking that Van der Poel was gone. But Van Aert made that gap close again. And it stayed a little bit in between those 10-6 seconds. And then for Van der Poel, unfortunately, he had a puncture midway through the race, and he had a long way to go to change his bike. Van Aert got him back, came into the lead and gained from that puncture almost 30 seconds. From that moment, the race was run. Unfortunately for us, a duel was taken away, and Van Aert was just able to take that advantage home and to win. In his almost home race, because it's only 3.8 kilometers away from his house, so but it was Van Aert in first, and it was Van der Poel in second, and Van Toerenhout actually a very strong race in third place.
Well, of course, the crucial part in this race was the moment that Van der Poel punctured. Van Aert, after the race, said, "I didn't see he had a puncture when I caught him. I went to the lead of the race to not give Van der Poel a rest. But when I opened the gap, I knew he had a puncture." And he said, "I started too soft. That's why he changed bikes and he upped his tire pressures twice." But at the end, I think it's very unfortunate for the race one, and I think for Van der Poel as well, because I do think he was slightly stronger than Van Aert. It wasn't much, but I do think that he had been cruising a bit, like yo-yoing the gap, then to 6, then to 10, then to 6 again, back to 11. And I do think he had something, just these 1 or 2% extra, as you could see at the hill, which he could come to the top, which Van Aert couldn't.
I think we're robbed of an interesting duel today between Van Aert and Van der Poel. It's very unfortunate. Van Aert, of course, deserving this victory, riding a very strong race, and he was able to pounce on the puncture of Van der Poel, and Van der Poel went into cruise control after knowing full well that the difference in skills today just wasn't big enough to close half a minute. I think that speaks for itself, and that it would have been an interesting last few laps.
Yeah, I think in the technical parts, Van der Poel was a little bit stronger. It was not much, though. I think that Van Aert was taking a lot of risks as well, and he was going quite well through the corners. I think the running section, a long uphill running section, was really a Van Aert part of the parcours. I think that Van Aert was very close, if not equal to Van der Poel, because he kept that gap very consistent, and I think that showed that Van Aert was on the level of Van der Poel. So I think most people will live with this result, and I think it's just a well-deserved victory for Van Aert.
It's definitely good for his confidence, but I do think that Van der Poel, even though Van Aert was keeping the gap the same, I think Van der Poel usually does this. He keeps them hanging at the same amount. He tries to cover their pace. If they accelerate, he accelerates. If they slow down a bit, he slows down a bit. I think he, just like yesterday, was maybe already thinking about the other races. Of course, Van Aert made it harder than Hermans did yesterday, but I do think that if it would really have come down to a battle, of course it's all speculating, but I do think that Van der Poel would then still pretty comfortably have won with around 10 to 15 seconds, mainly due to the fact that the first time of that ski hill, that he was able to ride to the top, and Van Aert always needed to walk, and it was about 5-6 seconds every time, and Van Aert made up for it on the straights. But I do think in the last lap that could have been a crucial moment.
I think that if you look at the race in the end, that if you would look back at Namen and Namur, I think that there it was shown that Van der Poel still has a little bit the edge over Van Aert. Today we didn't see that battle, so it's very hard to speculate on that. But I really do agree with the fact that Van der Poel did a race yesterday. He did Essen, Van Aert didn't. So those elements really play a big role, and this is what you're gonna see more often in this part of the season. People are gonna make choices, and for Van der Poel especially, it's gonna be a very busy next year because he's going to be on the road, focusing on the classics and the Tour de France, but he's also going to focus on his mountain biking, and he needs to finish this cyclocross season with the World Cups, with the World Championships. So everybody has his own goals at this point, and some choose to pick the races a little bit better than others.
However, these two, they were really a class above the rest today. I mean, Van Aert wins with 35 seconds over Van der Poel, and then in third we find Michael van Toornout, 1 minute 32 down already. But nevertheless, I mean, it's a big time difference, but Van Toornout, he rode a pretty good race. In the beginning, he was still able to keep up with them, but then ultimately falling back a bit. But I think Van Toornout is clearly the strongest of the Paul-Sauze guys at the moment.
Yeah, I think it's been a couple of bad starts for Iserbyt. Maybe not necessarily a wrong tire choice, a different tire choice today. Doesn't quite seem to have paid off as he would have liked. And Van Toornout again showing that he is able to stick with Van der Poel and Van Aert the longest out of all the guys that were there from the start of the season.
You already mentioned it, that Iserbyt didn't have the best start, but what is this with Iserbyt? Because every time that Van der Poel seems to line up on the start line, he seems to mess up his start and then needing to overcompensate for that. And this race in the beginning, I thought, oh yeah, he's going to close that gap. When he finally passed David van der Poel, he was up into fourth. Then you were thinking, okay, maybe he can bridge the gap, but instead of bridging the gap, he got overtaken by others. I mean, is it some kind of mental thing that he is too eager to show himself against Van der Poel?
It might be coincidence, because we have seen this tendency by Iserbyt. It's not the first time. Last season he had a little bit the same problem. Very strong beginning of the season, but then it went down a little bit. The shape was not really where it should have been, and maybe it's the same issue again. Of course, I think that the return of those big guys will not make his life easy. You would now have, in the beginning, he was probably the strongest out there, but now you have 3, 4, 5 guys that can be in front of him. This changes the whole game, and then you have to probably look different into the race. Maybe he's not doing that, I don't know. But I think it's also just a shape issue, because you don't finish so far behind only because of a bad start. You can always come back a little bit. I think he didn't do that today, so it might also just be that if you're not racing for the win, your race changes completely, and then you have to pep yourself mentally up to try to have a good result.
Twan, could it also be tiredness that is kicking in? Because of course he's been racing for wins ever since the start of the season, and that's almost 2.5 months or something like that, and there's a lot of races now. So could it be some tiredness that is kicking in for Iserbyt?
I'm not sure it would be. It might play a little factor, but I think there's a lot of mental stuff involved there, because it can't quite be that he is targeting this month, which he said at the start of the season, I think, and then it just kind of drops off like this. I think we have seen worse starts from him during the season, but he was always able to make up for it, because he was one of the strongest, or the strongest in the field, and I think with Van der Poel and Van Aert that's a lot tougher on him as well, because I think he knows he needs like a near perfect race to actually be in with a shot of winning, and it's just not quite happening for him now. And yeah, it's not looking all that good. It always seems to go a little wrong when he knows he's out of the running for victory.
Let's take a look at the entire top 10 then. Behind the podium that we already discussed of Van Aert, Van der Poel, Van Toornout, we find Toon Aerts in front of Iserbyt, Zweek, Hermans. Then 2 Dutch riders in the persons of Van der Haar and Van Kessel, and Gianni Vermeers rounds off the top 10. Let's go back to the number 4 of the top 10, Toon Aerts. Again, not a great race for him, but we understand that there is a bit more towards his slightly worse performance. Yesterday's podcast, we already mentioned it, that he had been hit by a van on training before Namur. He himself is playing it down, but his team manager Sven Nys said his whole right leg is blue and it's turning black now, so he definitely thinks that is a reason that Toon Aerts is not performing as well as you would expect him to do. But nevertheless, a 4th place, not bad, especially considering that injury that he has.
Yeah, I think his body was, of course, in a recovery period right now, and he's going to miss like 1% here or there. And I think it's an impressive performance what he did today, beating Iserbyt, someone that he has struggled with throughout the season, and he isn't 100% right now, and it looks promising, even though he is 2 minutes behind the winner today, of course.
Then the rest of the top 10 is mainly filled with names that we're quite used to seeing there. Only in 10th, Gianni Vermeers, it's a step better for him. He ends in 10th. I would like to briefly discuss his performance and the performance of Tim Merlier, who ended 22nd. What do you guys think about the performances of Vermeers and Merlier?
I think Gianni Vermeers is slowly going where he needs to be. 10th place today, very promising. And I think we'll see him start battling for like 7th place as the season goes on. Whereas Merlier really isn't going the right way. It seems that it is just not working out for him so far. Had a DNF in Gavre, and again, not able to make the top 15 actually. And this is a bit troubling. Of course, this was just his 3rd race back, so maybe he needs a few more, but this isn't going very well. Whereas last season, he really seemed to have made a step to really becoming one of the top 5 guys in the field.
Yeah, I think for Vermeers it's going to be encouraging such a race. For Vermeers, and for Merlier, yeah, it's not looking good. But I think that for him, of course, the focus last year has been on the road mainly. So maybe that has played a part in it. And for him, his biggest goal is going to be the Tour de France. So I think he's with other things in his mind during the cyclocross season.
I would have to agree. I think he's really transformed into this road sprinter, and it's just not given for everyone to be like Van Aert or Van der Poel. Then let's go and talk about the women's race, where it was a decent race here. Twan, tell us about it.
We had another quick start where the three main women of this season split off. It was Alvarado, Brandt, and Betsma who were going to make out who was going to be the winner today. And in a rather surprising turn of events, it was Celine Del Carmen Alvarado who started pushing the pace, and it was Brandt that was chasing her down. And it looked to be going back to like Boom, where Brandt was playing with her a little and closing the gap, but a few quick mistakes in succession really opened up the gap for Alvarado, and she would come home victorious with Brandt in second place, with Denise Betsma really not too far behind her either.
So the crucial part in this race was, for me, the moment that Brandt crashed. You could see that Brandt was actually catching the gap that Alvarado had opened. It was 13 seconds at some point. Then it went down to 4. But then she made that crash in the second downhill of the Skiberg. Really the crucial point. What do you think that happened there? Was it maybe just a bit too eager there, that she really wanted to close those last 2 or 3 seconds?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, she was taking quite a lot of risks, in my opinion, in some parts, which I would say that it was not necessary. And I think, when you're used to winning a lot, it's a switch in your mind to make if you are chasing down. And I think she was struggling a little bit with the fact that she had to chase down this time.
I think Alvarado just made optimal use of all the technical sections that were in the parcours, and she really was able to put Brandt under pressure. Whereas I don't think we've had this kind of technical parcours this often in like the past month, where Brandt was able to basically keep on winning the whole time. So I think this was a very, very solid performance by Alvarado.
I think for Alvarado, the real difference was that she was actually able to ride up the first time they went up the Skiberg, that part where Brandt every lap needed to walk, Betsma needed to walk 2 out of 4 times, but Alvarado made it up 3 out of the 4 times, and Brandt in the following descent, she absolutely sent it. That was like crazy downhill, maximum risk and also maximum reward, because every lap she took like a few seconds there. That was pretty awesome to see.
Yeah, I think actually she was faster than a lot of guys that were running at the men's race in that downhill. There was a lot of risks and fair play that she didn't make that many mistakes there. So, she really did everything to come back. Took a lot of risks, but in the end, she came just a little bit short.
It also really shows that she made that step in the cyclocross to improve her technique, because a few years ago she would have maybe gone down a bit more the way as Jara Kastelein went down, with a lot of fear and very slow and losing seconds there. But I think that really pays off. But it's also good that Alvarado takes the win here. In the interview we figured out that in Leuven, if you remember back, that was her last win a couple of weeks ago. She crashed in that race as well. And actually she was injured, and at least I hadn't heard about that, but she was injured, and for 2 weeks she almost did no training. After 20 minutes she was home because her knee was hurting, was what she said. So that was why she was trailing, but she's finally gotten back to training, is what she said in the interview, and now she takes the win here. So I think we could be in for some more battles with Alvarado, Brandt and Betsma for the rest of the season.
Yeah, true, but about that injury, I think that really harmed her a little bit, because you could see that after Leuven it didn't go the way she wanted it to go, I guess. And she had to wait a long while to get again a victory. These type of races really suits her. We could have seen it also the victories that she took in Brussels, when she won in Bau. She likes it when it's raining, when there are a lot of technical corners in it, and a little bit it's a kind of mountain bike parcours. It's actually a mountain bike parcours when there is no racing on it. So I think the race really suited her, and then on top of that, if you feel very good, then it's going to be a lot easier to win a race then.
Let's take a look at the entire top 10 then. Behind Alvarado, Brandt and Betsma, it was Honsinger in front of Kant, Vos, Bakker, Kastelein, and Vos ended 9th in front of Van Empel, who ended 10th. So there's some pretty interesting names here. I'm not going to discuss all of them, because then this podcast is going to be 1 hour long. But behind Betsma, we saw Clara Honsinger, 4th place. Pretty good performance, especially after her 11th place yesterday in Essen. And The commentators of Belgium, they were slightly downplaying her, saying that she could only do good on climbing courses, but she definitely showed here that definitely that's not the case. She just had, once again, a bad start and managed to come to the front, and 4th place is definitely a good performance by her.
I think just giving her credit for doing well on climbing courses is selling her short. She's a very good rider. Of course, she really excels on the climbing courses. This is really where she can go toward the top 3. And I think today the climbing parts helped her as well, of course, in catching up with some people. We didn't really get to see all too much of her race, but a very good performance, getting her that 4th place.
You could actually say the same for the 2 riders behind her as well, Kant and Vos. Vos coming all the way from the 4th or 5th starting row, then ending 6th. Also good overtakes by her. And Sanne Kant, 5th here. I do have to say it is a perfect parcours for her in her backyard, but nevertheless, a 5th place. This is definitely one of the better Kants I've seen this season so far.
Yeah, I think a very good performance from Sanne Kant. She was really good in the top 5 there. You see that she really likes when it becomes muddy, when it's a hard parcours. She really gets in her element, and she really loves these kind of races. So I think for her, she's hoping for a little bit more rain in the next few days, so the remainder of the season will also be very hard, and she can maybe get some couple more top 5s.
A bit further in the top 10, we see a solid race by Bakker. Kastelein fell back quite far, where they said her technique definitely hampered here. And in 9th and 10th, we saw decent performances by Vos and Van Empel, kind of around the place where they usually are. But if you take a look at yesterday we talked about some riders as Arzoufi and Ribeirol, that the race of yesterday could have helped them to get some more confidence. And today you could see that 13th and 14th, it's still not in the top 10 where you would expect them to be in normal conditions, but it's definitely better than it was before when they were somewhere around 20th place.
Yeah, it's nice to see, especially for Norbert Ribeirol. She has to defend her U23 title in Oostende, of course, and for large parts of the season, it really hasn't looked like she was worthy of that title in Dubendorf, but it's finally coming closer to that form with which she was able to grab that.
Then I think we've had it all for today's racing. Twan and Issam, thank you for joining me.
Thanks for having me on.
And with that said, there is more cyclocross waiting around the corner. This Saturday is the Super Prestige in Heus de Zolder, and on Sunday is a brand new World Cup held in Dendermonde. We'll be taking a look ahead at this in a preview episode, where we'll be actually previewing on both episodes, and that will come online on Friday morning. If you missed yesterday's podcast about the ATS Cross in Essen, you can also check that out on YouTube or any audio platform that you want under the name Cyclocross Social. I would like to thank every single one of you for listening, and have a very Merry Christmas, and we'll see you with more cyclocross news. Goodbye.